Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hi, Lisa. How you doing,
Hi,
Lisa?
Jeffrey.
What's going on?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, you've been busy here.
Just put the coffee in. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, well, good morning to you. I know this opportunity that you have getting involved with the Secrets of Playboy. I've been watching this series, and now they've picked up a couple new episodes which you're involved in, which I'm sure when you got the gig, you're very happy, very excited. But at the same time, this is an emotional story, and probably a lot of sadness and emotions flying around being involved in this, happy and sad.
Yeah, because these women are telling stories of sexual abuse and trauma. Their experiences were very dark in a lot of these cases. And so, obviously, as a journalist, I want to be there to help tell the stories, to ask questions about the stories, and to continue the conversation. The first 10 episodes were shot documentary style, but tonight and next Monday night, 2 final episodes are shot in studio. And so I go back and I talk to some of the women that were in the documentary series, and I'm also talking to some new women that have come forward to tell their stories, including tonight the 2 twins, Christina and Carissa Shannon, who were 19 years old when they starred in the final season of The Girls Next Door. And their stories are absolutely jaw-dropping. I mean, really shocking stuff. So I'm glad as a journalist to be involved with it. I'm excited to help tell the stories, but it's also a very, very, very dark legacy that we're talking about.
You talk about dark things. I think the worst thing I've heard so far, I mean, I feel terrible for these women, but also supposedly, I didn't see this episode, but Hugh, there's somebody saying that he had sex with a dog. I mean, is this something that was in the show as well?
Yeah, Sandra Theodore was one of his girlfriends. She was his girlfriend for 5 years, late 70s into the 80s, and she claimed that things were so out of control and chaotic that she walked in on him with her dog. And
oh my God.
It's pretty, again, the stories are all horrible. They're all horrible for different reasons, but it's important at this point to listen to the stories because what they describe is an organization that was targeting vulnerable young women, some of them from very bad backgrounds, and took advantage of them for decades. And a lot of people didn't believe these women, even though they were trying to speak out about this for a long time. One of them testified in front of the Nice Commission in the 80s, and people didn't believe her. So now people are starting, post Me Too, a lot of people are starting to believe these women, and especially when the stories are so similar throughout the decade.
In January of 2006, you graced the cover of Playboy, and as I'm seeing on the internet, I'm sorry, but I had to look into this, Lisa. And at 40, amazing. I can't believe some of these photos I'm seeing. But from what I hear, you didn't have a bad experience at your involvement in Playboy. Can you tell me about that experience and how it became about?
Yeah, when I was 19, 20, 21, I was a model, and I grew up on the beaches of San Diego and Huntington Beach. I was a swimwear model. I did a lot of fitness. I was a Gold's Gym girl and Nautilus Fitness, and so I was really comfortable in my skin. I was, a blooming actress, taking acting classes. I wanted to be an actor. And I signed with the Playboy modeling agency and was eventually asked to be a playmate. And I turned down the opportunity because I had a feeling that it wouldn't be good for me at that point in my career, starting out. And I'm glad I made that decision because I went on to be a sportscaster and an actor and working really steadily. But through the years, Playboy kept coming back to me, offering me at first the centerfold opportunity, and then later to be a celebrity cover. And I kept turning them down every year. And finally, 20 years later, when I was 40, I accepted. At that point, I had a huge sportscasting career. I'd been really successful. I had been an actor, but I wanted to make a career transition, and I wanted to do entertainment news. I wanted to work for maybe a news magazine. And I knew that if I was on the cover, people would be doing stories about me, and I would be able to say, hey, I want to be a correspondent for one of the news magazines. And sure enough, Inside Edition did a story about me being on the cover at 40, and that turned into 2 weeks later a contract offer to be the West Coast correspondent for Inside Edition, and that was in 2006. In 2010, I was promoted to chief investigative correspondent, which is where I am today. I've done over 600 investigations for Inside Edition, and I've won 35 National Journalism Awards. Who knew that Playboy would have provided the bridge for me between sportscasting and investigative journalism, but it did. So yes, I had a good, positive experience with Playboy, which is why I'm the perfect journalist to host these episodes, because I don't have an axe to grind against Playboy. But because I'm a woman that has seen the darkness around the Playboy brand for many years, I was at the mansion, I saw some things going on that made me uncomfortable, I believe the women. So I ask tough questions tonight and next Monday night. We get into some very serious discussions. But at the end of the day, I believe the women.
And your experience in 2006, did you have a chance to meet Hugh Hefner? What was that exchange like? Maybe at 40, you were too old for him. I mean, even though you look pretty damn good in these photos, but you might have been.
Thank you very much.
Your opportunity may have set sail. It sounds like Hugh liked them awfully young.
Yeah, well, I met him at 20. I was at the Playboy Mansion when I was signed by Playboy models. We were encouraged to go to Friday night movie night. And I didn't go when I was first signed. And then my agent called me and said, she said, you have to go. You need to go. It'll be good for your career to go to the mansion. So I went. I was really naive. I had never had a drink of alcohol before. And what I saw was really disturbing to me and made me uncomfortable. I met Hugh Hefner the second or third time I was there, and he came in for a kiss, and I turned my cheek, and he ended up kissing me on the side of the face like an open-mouthed, like it was like a dog slobber on my cheek. And he obviously didn't like that I turned my cheek, but at the same time, they wanted me to pose for the centerfold. And they kept coming at me every year, offering me more and more money to do it. And so I did meet him early, and I was uncomfortable, but I certainly wasn't targeted. And I, stopped going to the mansion, and eventually I moved on with my career. But because of my early experience, I do realize how some women could have been in that vulnerable position. And I look back on my experience differently now that I've seen Secrets of Playboy.
When I hear names like in the stories of Dorothy Stratton and Pamela Anderson and Jenny McCarthy, especially in the sense of Pam and Jenny, and yourself, after Playboy, these women get a lot of power. From what I gathered from watching the show, it seemed like, according to some of the Playmates, Hugh didn't want these women to have the Hollywood power. How do you think Hugh Hefner felt when a woman like Pamela Anderson became a big star? Was that something that he didn't like, you think, because these women now have more control? He wants to control them.
Gentry, you make such a great point, because tonight on Secrets of Playboy, we actually talk about this, because the two twins that starred on the final season of The Girls Next Door, they were starting to get really popular. They were starting to get roles in movies. They were in Sofia Coppola's film. They were brand models for different beauty companies, and they were on a French campaign, I think, for L'Oreal. And their star was on the rise at 19. They were gorgeous and twins. And so I think that Hugh Hefner started to feel threatened by it. And according to the women, there were security guards posted at their doors. They had a 9 p.m. curfew, and they were not allowed to leave the mansion or even leave their room without his permission. So he was really trying to control them, I think, because some of these other women became celebrities and powerful. And I think, part of his deal was that he targeted vulnerable young women because he wanted to control them. And when he started to lose control, he didn't like it.
I think there's some people, though, that are questioning why now, after Hef is dead. Wouldn't it have resonated much more if this would have all came out while he was alive?
Gentry, Mickey Garcia, former Playmate, and then she went on to work in Playmate promotions and marketing within the Playboy brand. She spoke out about this exact thing during the Mies Commission in the 80s in front of an entire country. she spoke out about this. Several women, including Susie Scott, who's now Susie Kraybacher, she wrote a book about this. And in her book, she describes the trauma and sexual abuse that happened to her. Throughout the years, women have been trying to come forward, many in interviews. Some wrote books that the Playboy organization tried to quelch. They've been trying to tell their stories. Maybe people weren't listening, but please don't blame the women for not coming forward or waiting until after Hugh Hefner died, because I remember hearing stories and seeing posts on Facebook and Twitter about some of these allegations years ago. And in fact, I remember when I was, I think, in my 30s, I was now...
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Sportscaster, I remember a woman being cut off during an interview when she started to talk about Hugh Hefner being a predator. And so women have been trying to talk about this. But yeah, it's a lot easier post Me Too. You know, now that he's dead, some women feel more comfortable. And remember, throughout the Secrets of Playboy, there's a really strong allegation that he videotaped. He had hidden cameras throughout the mansion, and he threatened women with these videos. And he said, if you talk about me, if you write a book, I'm going to release these videos of you. So he was blackmailing them in some cases, according to these women.
I also heard that. I don't know if you can confirm this as well, but it's always been a rumor that celebrities would go to the Playboy Mansion and Hefner would film them and drug them and maybe get them in some compromising positions, take pictures of them, and then that would be used as blackmail throughout Hollywood to be able to, if they wanted to destroy someone's career, they would have the blackmail they would need to destroy them in Hollywood. Did you hear any of these stories?
Yes, there's a whole episode about that in Secrets of Playboy. So all of the rooms at the mansion had hidden cameras and also outside. And so when he'd have these big parties, he would invite huge celebrities, politicians, journalists, and throughout the night, as they're drinking or doing drugs, all of their activities are being videotaped in every room. And so he was able to have this blackmail material on all of these powerful people in Hollywood. And also, please remember that off-duty cops with the LAPD and Beverly Hills Police Department were on his payroll as security guards. So you have a whole recipe here for blackmail. You've got a powerful man who's beloved in Hollywood who has blackmail material, allegedly, on politicians, celebrities, and journalists, carrying on with young women, including drug use. Can you imagine?
It's
That's
juicy.
why a lot of these stories did not come forward and why these stories didn't come out until recently.
A&E's documentary series Secrets of Playboy airing tonight and again on April the 4th. 2 episodes added to this juicy documentary, and our guest Lisa Guerrero going to be hosting the next 2 episodes. Also, an investigative reporter on Inside Edition. We love your work. We also saw that you've been digging up skeletons on these bad guys, where you were on the private island of Jeffrey Epstein right after he was found of sex trafficking. Tell us about that experience.
You know, a lot of the investigations that I do have to do with marginalized people and giving them a platform to speak out about their sexual abuse or their trauma in some way. And so a lot of the survivors and victims that I talk to are women or children, people of color, elderly people, people that don't necessarily have a voice. So what our platform on Inside Edition provides them is an opportunity to tell their stories. And then usually at the end of these stories, I go out and I do what's called, confrontational journalism, or I go out in the field and I try to get answers. In this case, the Jeffrey Epstein story had been unfolding. This is when he was still alive and had been under arrest. So we chartered a boat to go to this island where there were rumors that he was sex trafficking women onto this island for these parties with powerful people. And so we actually went there, and I set foot on the island, and we did a report on it. And, it was one of the first looks that people got at this island. We set up a drone camera so you could see the different buildings on the island. And, that is one of the kinds of stories that we do. We also do stories about, true crime, cold cases, scams. I've interviewed, everybody from Kenneth Copeland to, the real Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort. So I try to hold powerful people accountable. And I think that's what journalism should be about, right? At the very best of what we can do is to stand up for people and to ask tough questions of people in power.
And you were also the best damn sports beauty. That was what was on the cover in January of 2006 when you were on the cover of Playboy. And they used that tagline because you were the sideline reporter for Monday Night Football. You want to talk about a man's world. Get into reporting in the world of sports, which I've covered sports, and it's definitely a man's world in those locker rooms. You went through a lot of mental health struggles during this time. You've been open about it. What was that experience like, and was there sexual harassment, sexual abuse at your time on Monday Night Football?
So, my sports career spanned 12 years, and I started here in Los Angeles as a local sports reporter, and I very quickly climbed the ranks from local to regional to national sports, and I ended up on shows like Sports Geniuses, Tough Man, The Best Damn Sports Show, period, and then Monday Night Football. And along the way, I had awesome experiences covering sports with people like Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe and, A-Rod and Mia Hamm. And I just interviewed so many huge stars. I had great experiences as a sports anchor and as a correspondent. And finally, I ended up on Monday Night Football. And that experience was dark. And there were other experiences throughout my career where I was sexually harassed, where inappropriate things were happening to me and around me. And I started writing about those experiences years ago. And I'm now writing a memoir that's going to come out in January, and I'll have to come back and talk about that when the book comes out. But yes, things like sexual harassment were definitely part of what I had to deal with as a young woman in sports. And also just verbal abuse and marginalization and, a lot of those things that led me to the precipice of, suicide at one point. I was in a dark place. And that's part of my journey, right? I overcame that. That was 18 years ago, so it's in my rearview mirror today. But I think it's important now to talk about depression, to talk about those kinds of workplace, harassment and the anxiety that stems from that. So these are conversations people are having now. And I think it's important for us to be open and honest about them and to say, yes, it happened to me, but I was able to reach out to get help. I was able to talk to my dad. I went to a therapist, and I dealt with it. And I think, just because you look like a certain person on the outside and it seems like your life is glamorous doesn't mean that you are not experiencing trauma or that you might not be experiencing depression. And so I think that it's important for us to listen to people when they come forward now and say, hey, it's not what it looks like. I am dealing with this. Simone Biles, is somebody that's been open about this kind of depression, and other athletes have as well. And as a sportscaster, I dealt with that, and I want to be open about it.
I also follow you on Twitter. I suggest our listeners do the same at the number 4, Lisa Guerrero on Twitter. And I saw in the bio it says, my mother moved here at 16 and died at 29. You were just 8 years old. I'm curious how you've had such a successful career, such a strong woman, having something so tragic happen to you at such a young age. It seems very inspiring and very heartbreaking as well.
Thank you. My mom was a Chilean immigrant, so she was a Latina. She came to this country. She didn't speak English at first, and she became a citizen. And I remember her telling me when I was a little girl, your last name, Guerrero, means warrior. You are a warrior. You are meant to help people. You are a warrior. Never forget that, Lisa. She would tell me that when I was little. She died when I was 8, and I have a wonderful dad. And I told my dad when I became an adult, I want to take my mother's last name. I identify as a Latina. I want to be Lisa Guerrero, but I don't want to hurt you, and I don't want you to to feel like I'm insulting you by not keeping your last name, but I want to be Lisa Guerrero. And my dad supported me, and he loved me because of that. He said, your mother would have been so proud of you. And so I think that's, I wouldn't be where I am today without having the mother that I was lucky to have for 8 years and without having the father that I've been blessed to have for 57 years. So it's because of both of them that I have the strength that I do. And yes, Guerrero means warrior, but we are all warriors, and we all have that capability if we're allowed to tap into our inner superhero.
Yo soy el gringo papi chulo, el Guerrero. Sí, mamacita.
You can still trill your R's. I love it.
Yes, gringo. Yeah. You've lived. I like it. I love to dance the salsa merengue too. That's my thing. I can move for a white boy, but it seems like you've lived some kind of life, Miss Guerrero. And I hear that there's even a book and a film on the way. What's the status with that?
So the book is coming out in, it looks like January right now. Hachette is my publisher. We just turned in the final manuscript, so now we're shooting the cover of the book. And oh my gosh, it's so exciting to write a book. It's called Warrior, of course, because Guerrero means warrior. Warrior, my path to being brave. And because the book is coming out, some producers heard about it and said, hey, this would be a great scripted series. We're interested in doing a TV show about your life. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, what a dream come true. So they're now searching for a showrunner, which is a head writer, to oversee the project. So we're all in the beginning stages of these things, but the book is well on its way. The book will come out first, and then hopefully a TV series the following year.
That's exciting. Check it out tonight. A&E's documentary series, Secrets of Playboy, with our guest, Lisa Guerrero. Adios, and thank you so much for coming on the show. Go Lakers.
Yeah, go Lakers. Thanks, Gentry.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.